What are you supposed to do when your partner can't or refuses to apologize? It's a problem that comes up much more often than you think. So, if this is something that you're struggling with, know that you're not alone. And in this video, I'm going to go over different things you can do, different techniques, different parameters you should set in your relationship to make it easier for you to deal with it, to encourage them to apologize, and where to draw the line when things are just getting out of hand. The first thing I want you to understand is that a partner's refusal to apologize very often stems from a deep-seated sense of insecurity or a fear of vulnerability. Now, why is that? How are those connected? Well, when somebody apologizes, who is uncomfortable with apologizing, they look at it as a moment of weakness. And so let's make up a situation. Let's say that they were going to do the dishes, but they just didn't. They forgot, and they have forgotten for several days, and now the dishes are piled up, and it's smelly in the kitchen, and yada yada yada, right? And you confront them on it because that was what you guys agreed on in terms of splitting up the household work. And instead of apologizing, they criticize you, they justify, they rationalize, they get angry, they turn the tables around, whatever they do, they get quiet. You know your partner, you'll know exactly what tactics they will choose to use. Why is it that they do that when deep down they know they're at fault? Because here's the thing, if they accept the label as someone who is neglectful, that means that you would be justified in running away from the relationship. So they can't handle the idea that you look at them and consider them unreliable in some way. And usually that's what it is. When someone has to apologize, there's a moment of unreliability. It doesn't mean that they're unreliable. It's that they kind of, miss the mark, but they don't see the difference. There's an ability that most people have, and it's not a huge majority, but it is a majority where they could say, sometimes I make a mistake and I need to own up to it. Other people say, no, if I make a mistake and I own up to it, that means that's who I am. And if that's who I am, they won't want to be with me. And so I have to cloak the reality of the situation by accusing them, denying, because that label is too hard for me to wear because it means I'm not safe in this relationship. That's really what's going on. And I've seen this not just in romantic relationships, but in parent-child relationships where a mom or a dad refuses to acknowledge any kind of false, step or fallibility, even though it's clear. So what can you do? So if you run into this, if this is part of your relationship, you need to learn how to focus on expressing how their actions impact you without demanding an apology first. So first, just set the table, right? Don't demand the apology. First, just say, hey, do you realize that when you didn't do the dishes, the kitchen started to smell and it sucks for both of us? Can we just acknowledge that? Not looking for an apology. Can we just say that? When there's no apology necessary at the start, you'll start gaining a little traction there. Okay. And another phrase that I will use quite often with people like that is nobody's perfect. As soon as you start saying nobody's perfect, and there's this sense of acceptance of the fallibility that some people might have, they will loosen, they will warm up, because that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of, if I apologize, it won't be accepted. That's the core root. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Dr. Jon Dabach, and I'm a couples counselor, relationship coach. I've worked with thousands and thousands of couples as well as individuals who want to learn how to make the relationship better. On this channel, I just spill my guts. I just tell you everything I know. There's no fancy graphics and animation, but it's me talking to you as if you were sitting here on my couch or on a Zoom with me, and I'm just trying to offer the most information on relationships possible. So if this resonates with you, like and subscribe, because I come out with content like this all the time. Let's talk about what else you can do. So you want to encourage open dialogue about accountability, about taking responsibility in the relationship. And you could do that reflexively. So it's like, look, if I make a mistake, wouldn't it be nice for you to hear me say, you know what, I own up to that and nobody's perfect and let's talk about how we can fix it. Again, avoid the words I'm sorry or apology and kind of show them, wouldn't you like that, right? That's all I'm asking for. I'm asking you to accept that you made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes, right? Again, reminding them that it's going to be accepted if they just take some accountability. So encourage that open dialogue. And you want to also model the behavior that you want to see by apologizing sincerely when you're wrong. So a lot of people say they never apologize. And if the two people come into my office on the couch or I'm seeing them on a Zoom, what I notice is the person accusing the other one of not apologizing also doesn't apologize. They also justify and rationalize. They'll say things like, I'm sorry if you feel that way, but that wasn't my intention. That's what I call a non-apology, right? I'm sorry if you were hurt. I'm sorry that you're seeing it with such a, ridiculous lens. That's a way of saying the word I'm sorry to make it sound like an apology, but then really say, I'm not sorry. It's your fault. You're the broken one. You see it all the time. And so what do? You have to make sure that when you apologize, you are modeling the way you would really like it to be received. And the first part is by being empathetic, listening, saying, tell me how you're hurt. And you don't rationalize, you don't justify, you just let them get it out. And you repeat, and you say, I could see how that hurt you. I really understand that this did this, and then you felt lonely, and then this happened here, and you felt unreliable, maybe you felt abandoned. Am I understanding the pain you've gone through? And when they say yes, you've reached a point of true empathy, and then you could say, I am so sorry. That was not my intention. I see how I made that mistake, and I will work harder to fix that. That's an apology. That's how you do it, okay? And you want to model that for your partner. If you don't model it, they might not ever learn it. And so that's really important. Another thing you need to do is you need to set a boundary. So if the person is if they're not responsive to any of these tactics and they just refuse to apologize, at a certain point, you have to say, listen, I understand this might be hard for you, and I understand that you think maybe admitting fault makes you feel like I won't accept you, and I understand that it's possible that you maybe even don't feel you're wrong, but I feel like this is a mistake, and you're not acknowledging any accountability, and so I will give you some time, and then you decide how much time, but at the end of the day, if you can't acknowledge and if you can't apologize for it, I can't continue in a relationship like that. A relationship is only as good as our worst parts. And so if your worst parts are things that you think I can't handle, then we can't be in a relationship. But I should be able to look at the worst parts of you and say, I love you anyway. And so when you're ready, you need to come to me and say, yes, I made a mistake, and I'm going to tell you I love you anyway. And if you can't do that, then maybe this relationship isn't healthy for either of us. You have to set a boundary. If someone is unwilling to acknowledge any of their own faults, you are in for a world of hurt where you will just constantly compromise and compromise and compromise and compromise, and you'll settle. Speaking of settling, a lot of people don't realize when they are settling, right? And in my very next video, I go over 9 signs to tell if you're settling in your love life. And if you want to watch that video and really understand if you're settling or you're thriving in a relationship that's exciting, or maybe you're just being hypercritical, you should watch that video, which is available by clicking on the little banner or thumbnail or whatever's going on right now on this screen.